What if the one thing God designed to protect you is the very thing you've been taught to ignore? We've all heard it before. Feelings aren't facts. But what if that's not the whole truth? What if your feelings, those raw physical responses that you feel inside your body, are actually sacred data designed by God to help you tell the difference between the truth and deception? In this video, I'm going to show you that feelings aren't the enemy. All your feelings are like having 15,000 best friends. Well, maybe not 15,000, but at least 500. 500 best friends that will never, ever lie to you. Not ever. They'll always tell you the truth. You might not like the truth they're telling you. You might not be able to handle it just yet, but it will always be the truth. Hi there, I'm Lillian. Welcome to my channel. Here I help Christian wives heal their femininity so they can stop thinking like sons of God and start embodying their lives like His daughters. I talk about my own journey and how healing my feminine heart led me to the discovery that I was married to a type 3 man. That's the type of man that's a Nabal. If you don't know if you're married to a type 1, 2, or a 3 husband, you can find a link for that in the description box. Do you want to learn how to understand God's Word as a woman, heal yourself by His sanctification, and possibly transform your marriage by faith and knowledge? Then this is the place for you. Welcome back. In this video, you'll learn the difference between emotions and feelings, the role the subconscious mind plays in emotional reactions, why ignoring your emotions blocks healing, and how emotional awareness is the key to discernment. Let's get started. I talk about feelings and emotions a lot on this channel, and how healing them is part of your journey as the Lord sanctifies you. But most of us don't really even know what emotions and feelings are. Years ago, if someone had have asked me to define or to describe feelings, I wouldn't have been able to identify anything about feelings, much less be able to describe anything about my own. I just thought they were fleeting impressions that kind of floated around loosely in my heart or personality. Now, when I look back, I can see why they felt so vague. It wasn't because emotions are actually vague. It's because I was disconnected from myself. And when you're disconnected, all of your own emotions feel like intruders, like they don't belong where they're showing up, because it's always at the most inopportune time. When you believe that your own feelings are somehow intruders in your body, that's a wrong perspective. I didn't know that all those emotions were actually biologically anchored pretty deeply and tightly in my subconscious mind. And that's where I come from. My subconscious mind is the source for all my habits, my instincts, and what I believe about, well, everything. What that means is that my subconscious mind communicates with my body through my emotions. The part I wish I really had known sooner was that emotions and feelings are not the same thing. I used to think that they were just two different ways of framing the same experience, but they're not. Emotions are the physical reactions that you experience in your body. They happen automatically. They're raw, and they happen even before you have words to describe them. Like when all of a sudden your heart is just racing. By the time your conscious mind tries to get a sense of it, it's already happening. Or your stomach drops, or your muscles tense up. They happen way before your conscious mind even registers that there's something to pay attention to. That's why I say you've got to feel first and then analyze. Because a woman's body knows the truth before her mind does. Now, feelings, not the emotions. The feelings are how you interpret all those raw emotions. They're the conscious awareness of what's happening in your body. The major distinction between the two is that feelings are like signposts you see in a rearview mirror. They're drawing your attention to the past, back to where, how, and why your subconscious reacted the way that it did. When you feel something deeply like rejection, fear, or even joy, it's your conscious mind getting a glimpse of what your subconscious is holding on to. Emotions are like the first wave to hit your body. It hits hard and fast. We call them triggers. Feelings are the interpretation of that wave. What you want to do is learn to lean into the feeling. Don't shut it down or brush it off by ignoring it. I've heard it described as surfing the emotion. That means riding it out, accepting it, and embracing it instead of judging yourself for feeling an emotion. Leaning into it is the only way you'll be able to trace it back to what triggered the emotion in the first place. Was it a word someone said, or a certain look you were given, or a sense that you're unheard or unseen? It could be a sight, a sound, or a smell, or maybe a particular situation that you're finding yourself in more often than not. That initial wave is where your healing starts. That feeling you're experiencing is what's drawing your attention. It's the perspective you want to ask from, like you're looking back in your rearview mirror at something you just drove past, but it grabbed your attention. You want to ask, why did I feel that so deeply? What part of my past is this brushing up against? Where in my heart has this already been stored? And how did it get into me? All those questions, they're the ones your body knows the answer to, and she's trying to show you. This is why it's so dangerous when people tell you to just think logically or to push past your feelings or that you can't trust them. If you ignore them, you lose the trail back to the wound that actually needs healing. It's also why emotional suppression is a strategy that the enemy uses. If he can get you to listen to people who are teaching you to ignore the signposts in your rearview mirror, he can keep you from finding the source of the wound, which is the opposite of what Jesus wants to do with you. Luke 4, verse 18, and Matthew 12, verse 20. Your subconscious mind processes emotional input automatically before your conscious mind has time to analyze, label, or categorize it. Your subconscious has already interpreted an emotional signal for you. It stores it either like a belief, or it triggers a reaction in your body, or it quickly shifts your attention toward whatever it thinks you need to notice, or it cocoons it and keeps it hidden, safe. And all of this happens super fast. In the book, The Biology of Belief, Dr. Bruce Lipton explains that your subconscious mind processes information at around 40 million bits per second, and your conscious mind can only handle about 40 bits per second. You know what your subconscious mind is like? It's like a flash of lightning. It's instantaneous and it illuminates everything in a split second. The 40 million bits per second processes everything all at once with zero hesitation. But with your conscious mind, that's more like a glow from a candle. It's deliberate and slow, and it can only focus on one small area at a time. Your conscious mind is designed to narrow in on one detail, while your subconscious mind sees the whole storm. That means your subconscious is working behind the scenes all the time, nonstop. So it makes sense, doesn't it? Why you feel something in your body before you can put words to it or even begin to understand it. You know how when I share parts of my personal story, I often say I could feel it, but I didn't understand it, so I didn't know what it meant. I could feel all the red flags, those flaming red flags. And if you're married to a wolf, you probably can too. We just don't know what they mean at a conscious level. This is why. You're not crazy. You're just wired in a way that God designed. But you're being taught to ignore all those inherent female mechanisms. Everybody knows that women have way lower levels of testosterone than men. It's that hormone that's most strongly associated with linear analytical thinking and compartmentalized decision making. Even at its highest point in our cycle, our testosterone only gives us a tiny uptick, so it's never the dominant hormone in our bodies. That's not a weakness, it's a design feature from God. What that means is that when it comes to relationships, we weren't made to separate thinking away from feeling like a man does. We were created to integrate the both of them. When a woman begins to understand this integration, she'll see that all of her emotional awareness is a doorway to her deepest programming, and that this awareness places her at the edge of something sacred. But here's the catch. Just because the door is there, it doesn't mean she knows how to walk through it, or even that she's supposed to. We carry more of the raw relationship material than men do. Way more. About 90% more. But if we're not healed, if we're not fluent in our emotional language, we're actually more at risk. That's why Satan went after Eve. She had access, but no discernment. And that made her the most vulnerable one in the garden. Predators, all predators, no matter where they sit on the spectrum, are just like Satan. They spy out the weakest in the flock or the herd, the one who can't quite tell what's real and what's a trap. 1 Timothy 2, verse 14. Think of Little Red Riding Hood. She saw the wolf. She heard his voice. She sensed something was off. She could feel it. But she didn't know how to trust what she felt until it was almost too late. This means Red's body was screaming at her with a volume of about 40 million bits of information. And instead of listening to them, she leaned into masculine energy with that little itty-bitty amount of testosterone and started analyzing grandmother's ears, eyes, and hands one by one. Her body had already told her something was wrong, but she second-guessed it. She tried to reason her way through what she felt. And by the time she finally noticed the teeth, it was too late. Well, it was too late depending on which version you read, Charles Perrault or the Brothers Grimm. I personally find Charles Perrault's version more in keeping with reality, because the truth is that getting out of that kind of marriage, when you're a Christian who's married to a wolf, a lot of us don't get out because we've been taught that we have to stay chained to the wolf who's masquerading like he's a husband. In that moment, when Red tried to analyze her way through the problem instead of feeling what she felt, that's the moment so many of us can identify with. As an onlooker, we want to scream at Red, "Can't you see that's not your grandmother? Can't you see it?" We've done the same thing. We stay in the conflict or the problem too long. The same problem, trying to figure it out and then re-figure it out again, second-guessing the reality of our own eyes and hearts instead of questioning the danger that's right in front of us, the enemy in our own home. It's to our detriment that we end up leaning into logic instead of trusting the feelings in our guts. And this is where emotions and feelings get really powerful and honestly amazing for us women. Our emotions get amplified by estrogen, but it's testosterone that silences them. So when people are telling you to disconnect from how you feel or to just think clearly, like that's the key to true spiritual growth, what they're doing is counseling you to operate out of someone else's design instead of your own. 1 Samuel 17, verse 3. Your healing, your discernment, your intuition, and your spiritual growth, none of that happens through detached logic. Not the way it does with a man. Our true growth comes when we heal and we're able to be present with all of our emotions, not by analyzing them. Well, you do analyze them, but that happens after they're felt. It happens after you experience them and as you accept them as your own and take ownership of them. Can you appear sanctified? Oh, yeah. You can follow religious works, codes, and rules for living the way that you've been told you should, so you look put together like an excellent Christian wife. But if those are just an act, that means it's not true sanctification from true faith and a real trust in God that comes from an authentic self. True sanctification for a female creature comes through noticing what your body and emotions are whispering to you or shouting at you like they were with Red, and learning to steward those cues the way the Holy Spirit teaches you to. Your emotions and feelings aren't things to be pushed aside like they're in the way, like they're obstacles to your sanctification. Your emotions are the very things God designed to connect your soul to truth, to healing, and to Him. So instead of buying into the masculine mantra that so many of us have been conditioned to believe, that mindset that says feelings are obstacles, try treating them like they're data, sacred data that's trying to communicate with you. Because they are. Your design, your whole body, mind, soul, and heart are soaked with estrogen because that's the way God wanted it. He didn't want to make you to be a carbon copy of the testosterone-based creature that He'd already created. You're not the hairless, smaller, weaker second version of a man like a human 2.0 that looks just a little different on the outside parts. You are a completely new creation. He created you to be different so that you'd embody everything that's the opposite of testosterone. When you start to accept your emotions as sacred data, data that's processed faster and more powerfully than anything your conscious mind can handle, that's when you start embodying the kind of feminine power that will expose deception, detect danger, and deconstruct codependency from the inside out. 2 Timothy 3, verse 6. That's how the enemy in the garden was able to so easily target Eve's emotions, because she wasn't embodying them, and that made her naive and easily deceived. She was over-focused on the outcomes that come from doing the role of the wife instead of being a daughter of the king. Healing your feminine heart is an act of war, and why Satan works so hard to keep women in the dark about their femininity. The more you heal, the more integrated you become, and that means you become a very real threat to every principality and force of darkness. Here's a very cool thing about your subconscious mind being boosted by estrogen. Our bodies are always listening, always receiving. We have the ability to perceive the world through a lens that's holistic. Our inner woman records whatever you allow her to absorb, and then she builds her emotional patterns and behaviors from that data. So if a woman's heart is unhealed, if she's still storing up messages from rejection, abandonment, trauma, or she's living in survival mode thinking, then her subconscious becomes more like a database of distorted information instead of truth. That's the danger of not responding to the healing process with Jesus. Because if your subconscious is filled with unhealed emotion, it will protect you from truth instead of guiding you into it. Those emotional mechanisms that God specifically gave to you so you could steward your feminine perception, they become a barrier that blinds you to your own trauma or your own wounded areas instead of exposing them. Here's why this really matters, theologically speaking. Sanctification can't happen in a heart that continues to protect and hide pain instead of seeking the truth of God's kingdom. Matthew 6, verse 33. If you don't seek his kingdom first, your heart gets walled off from transformation, and that makes it hardened. And God never intended for his daughters to live their lives inside of hardness. Ezekiel 36:26. He promised to remove the stone, not just soften it, but replace it entirely. True healing comes from surrendering wounds, all of your wounds and trauma and pain, not hiding it in a would-be protection. Jesus won't override our wills. He waits for us to become aware that we're operating out of survival and fear instead of his spirit. That's why healing isn't about fixing your marriage or getting your husband to change or even fixing you. Your healing is between you and God. And that's why I absolutely hate that Christian cliche that says marriage was created to make you holy, not happy. It's such a lie and so destructive to femininity. Your holiness comes from the work Jesus does to heal your heart. It's an organic process. Sanctification, holiness, is the demonstration of a healed heart. Healing is about reclaiming your God-given authority over your subconscious responses so that you don't keep calling deception and trauma love and keep calling feminine exploitation God's will. Healing is what activates the design God gave you. Healing is your catalyst into yourself. Without it, your sensitivity becomes a snare, something that's used to trap you. But when healing's embodied, it becomes your superpower. What I've come to realize is that most of us have been conditioned to see our own emotions as the enemy. This is how it happens. Scriptures like, "The heart is deceitful above all things," have been twisted into something it was never intended to mean, and misapplied to a woman's heart by backing it up with sentiments like, "Feelings aren't facts," and "Emotions will deceive you." My sisters, we have been masterfully deceived. 1 Timothy 2, verse 14, and 2 Corinthians 11, verse 3. The question isn't whether your feelings are facts. Maybe we should be asking, what if your feelings weren't meant to be the truth, but instead were designed to lead you towards it? Emotions aren't the enemy. The real issue is what we do with emotion when we don't know how to interpret it. So when someone says, "Don't trust your emotions and feelings," what they're presupposing is that femininity should be orienting from a masculine model of logic, one that separates emotion and feminine intuition from linear logic. If God wanted you to orient like one of his sons, he would have given you enough testosterone to activate that behavior in your relationships. But that's not how he created his daughters to operate. When you start to feel off or anxious or confused in your marriage, that's not your emotions lying to you. It's an alarm bell. It's your feminine sensitivity to atmosphere, to patterns, to emotional tone, and to relational incongruence. It's not always fully formed truth yet, but it's a signal to pay attention. The truth is that your feelings may not always be right, but they are always informative, especially if you're healing. So don't throw away your feelings. Learn to listen to them. Then take them to the Holy Spirit and ask, what's this emotion trying to show me? Is this an echo from my wound, or is it discernment from you? That right there, when you're able to lean into your feelings and trust your emotions. That's the difference between naivety and the feminine wisdom known as shrewdness. If this message has resonated with you, it's not by accident. It's time to stop dismissing what your body is trying to tell you and start leaning into the design that God placed in you. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to hear more content that will help you break the hold of masculine thinking. And remember, your feelings are not the problem. They are your power. Bye for now, and I'll see you in the next one.